Greetings, my fellow wanderers, and welcome to the Creepy Oz Halloween Special 2023. This year, together with my good friends, we're going to be reading you a selection of short creepypasta stories. We've got tales of ghosts and ghouls, haunted houses, terrifying monsters, and creatures of the night. So come, settle in by the fire with us. Let's dim those lights, burn some candles, grab yourself a nice warm cup of cocoa. Whatever you gotta do, get cozy, because things
are about to get creepy. Don't Open Your Eyes. Narrated by Creepy Oz.
On the last day of every month, close the blinds or curtains before you sleep. If, in the middle of the night, you hear a tapping noise at your window, don't open your eyes. If you're one of the unlucky ones, you'll hear that pebble sound at your window. It's not a friend. Just keep your eyes shut. The sound will get louder. The tapping will get faster and faster. Don't let your curiosity get the better of you. Don't move. It will lose its patience. It'll start thumping the window. Your window will shake and shudder, and the noises will only get louder. It will furiously pound the window and shake the panes. Don't worry, the window won't break. But for goodness sake, don't open your eyes. No matter how scared you are, no matter how badly you want to scream, pretend like you do not hear. Pretend you're still asleep. After a while, the noises will stop. Don't fall for it. Keep your eyes shut. Try to sleep if you can. Don't get up. Don't open your eyes until the sun comes up.
I'm Downstairs. Narrated by Papa Scare.
The clock struck midnight. I was on my laptop in my bedroom, browsing through YouTube videos. However, my browsing stopped when my phone vibrated. I saw that I received a text message from my friend Ben. "Hey man, I'm outside by the back door. Can you let me in?" I knew he was lying. For the last few weekends, he had been messing with me. One weekend, he told me he was parked in my cul-de-sac, when, in reality, he was in his bedroom. The following weekend, he told me that he was coming over to hang out. When I came outside to greet him in his car, he floored it out of my neighborhood. I wasn't going to let him get me this time. I sent a reply back. "I know you're just messing with me again." He immediately replied back, "No, I'm being serious this time. I am by the back door." Nice try. I know you're not there. I placed my phone down and continued my search. About a minute later, my phone vibrated again. "I'm downstairs." "Ben, you can't troll me 3 weekends in a row. However, I'll give you an A for effort." I placed the phone down again. I wasn't going to play his little game. As I was about to continue my search, I started to hear something from the deafening silence of my dark house. I faced the doorway behind me and listened closely. It sounded like footsteps silent footsteps walking around downstairs. It was nerve-wracking. I couldn't believe it. Was my mind playing tricks with me? Or was Ben actually in my house? I grabbed my phone. Are you joking with me, man? I continued to listen as my phone vibrated again. No, I told you I was downstairs, but you didn't believe me. I was quite relieved that it was him, but I was pissed off that he broke into my house. I could hear him walking around downstairs still, as I waited for him to come into my bedroom. I grabbed my phone again. Aren't you going to come upstairs? I can hear you walking around downstairs. Just come up here already. I sent a message and waited for him to respond. I was starting to get a little annoyed after a minute of waiting. I got up from my bed and went to the doorway. I proceeded to shout downstairs, "Get your ass upstairs already, stop fucking around." I sat back on my bed as I began to hear him walk upstairs. Suddenly, my phone vibrated again. It was a text message from Ben. You know I was just messing with you, right? My heart dropped as I heard my doorknob begin to turn.
Knocking. Translated and narrated by J Nightmares.
This is an urban legend I heard from a friend, which is apparently true, so if you don't want to mess around with stuff like this, then please just ignore it. My friend A was studying for an exam one snowy night in January. A was in his third year of high school at the time. As the hour grew late, he heard a knocking sound coming from outside his bedroom window. It knocked 3 times. For some reason, A knocked on the window 3 times in response, since he was sat at arm's reach of the window. A's bedroom was on the 2nd floor, and there was no balcony outside his window. There should be no one out there on such a cold and snowy night anyway. A didn't have this in his mind though. He was concentrating on studying, so he didn't really question anything. Then a little later, a story he had heard from his friend suddenly jumped to the forefront of his mind, and the story goes like this. It comes when you're alone, when you're completely alone. It's always behind a window or a door where no human can be, behind a window of a 4th floor building, behind a bathroom door of a person living alone. Even coming from inside the refrigerator. It knocks 3 times, always 3 times. Those who hear the knocking aren't frightened when they hear it. Nobody knows why they aren't frightened when they hear it. But this is important for later. Once you hear that knocking sound, you need to reply with the same number of knocks. If you fail to do so, that night, you may fall asleep and never wake up. Or, more likely, someone you know will be subjected to terrible misery. Or worse, death. That person is usually the person you deem most important in your life. All you have to do is knock back the same number of knocks you hear, okay? Keep that in mind. He wasn't frightened the moment he heard the mysterious knocking sound, and he knew he wasn't imagining it. He heard 3 knocks. But the knocking came for his friend, who we will call G. G didn't knock back. He remembered the story, but he wanted to see what would happen if you didn't knock back. A few days later, G got a call from a relative. His grandfather passed away. I heard this all from my friend, and man, G sounds like an idiot, right? From now on, this is my personal experience. Well, I first heard the story when I met A at university. We were out drinking and telling ghost stories. After I heard about 2 or 3 of these spooky stories, including this knocking one, I went back to my room since I was tired. Since I was at university, there was the normal amount of noise from the others in the same dorm as me. I wasn't in the same room, but the noise of the others down the hall was keeping me awake, and I was really tired. After a while, I heard a knocking sound coming from inside the wardrobe. I thought because of the story that A had told me one of his friends, if not the man himself, was hiding in that wardrobe and knocking to scare me. So I ran over to the wardrobe, I opened it as fast as I could, and there before me, I saw one of A's friends with a dumb smile on his face. I love pranks, so I wasn't even angry. So up to this point, it's just a funny story, right? I heard the knocking sound a day later when I went home to visit my parents. As you might expect, it came from a place where no one had the right to be. I heard it as I was drying myself after I got out of the shower. The knocking came from inside the shower against the glass door. I instantly copied the amount of knocks back. It was 3 for me, just like it was for A. I wasn't scared when I heard the knocking. Of course, when I told my friends about this, they just laughed at me. But honestly, please heed my warning. If you hear the knocking, you have to knock back. 5 of the people I have told this story to have heard the phantom knocking. Don't forget to knock back.
Windows. Narrated by Dr. Creepen.
It's true, what they say. Monsters do exist. They have always existed and will continue to do so. They live in our minds, infesting them with suicidal and horrible thoughts. Some of us give in, some of us don't. It's the battle that never ends. But there are more strange and fearsome things. The things that lurk in the shadows and only come out when it's dark on our planet. They feast on us, on our fear, our guilt, and every bad emotion we have. This is a story about one of those things. Those things that want to destroy our people. Kill us, torture us. I stare at the TV screen. Just some classic bullshit about politics again. My mind wanders off to several different thoughts. My wife, my job, my family. I work for the local police station, and since there are rarely any crimes in this town, we mostly eat donuts, drink coffee, and get fat. Although I wouldn't call myself that. I go to the gym every day and try to eat healthy. Although tonight, I have a bag of chips with me. A thought comes rushing into my mind. It was about a case we had last month. A man was washed ashore. He was dead, obviously, and covered in bite marks. And in some parts of his body there was flesh ripped out. His eyes were gone as well. We thought sharks, but they don't usually just bite some dead prey and leave it. No. There was something quite off about this bizarre incident. We had to close the case since there were no suspects, and the man's body was too destroyed to identify it. I felt a breeze of cold air the moment I sat up from the couch. The kitchen window was open. I got up to close it, and as I did, I saw a figure standing outside, looking at our window. I was a bit creeped out, I'm not going to lie. I hesitantly closed the window and then shut the blinds, thinking about how creepy this actually was. I yawned and opened the bedroom. My wife was long asleep, so I kissed her on the cheek, dressed down to my underwear, and silently got into bed and pulled the covers over my body. I was awoken at about 3 a.m. from knocking on the door. We lived in an apartment on the 4th floor, so it wasn't likely that any homeless person could have gotten in. Yet I got up, put on a pair of shorts, since it was summer outside, and went to look. I heard the knock again, and this time it was more violent. I said, "Hello?" and immediately regretted saying it. From the other side of the door, I heard an old man's voice. "Go. Run. They'll get you. Run. Run. They will eat you." And then there was silence. I listened for breathing, but there was none. In fact, it was way too quiet, more than it should be. We lived under a bar, and people go there every night. I was really creeped out when I, once again, felt cold air rush up my back. I looked behind me and saw the window in the kitchen open again. What? I'd closed it when I went to sleep. I walked slowly to the kitchen, to the window. I saw the same figure still standing there. I shut the window fast, locking it with a lock that we had over each window. I shut the blinds, took my gun from the safe and put it on my nightstand, just in case. I went back to bed, but it's needless for me to say that I didn't close my eyes once again that night. The next morning, once I woke up, my wife was cooking breakfast already. I entered the kitchen, still tired from the sleepless night, said good morning to her, and asked if she had opened the window at night. She denied doing it, so I was left thinking about this all day long. I won't bother telling you about my workday, because it was as boring as hell. Nothing ever happened in this small town. I got home before my wife, because she works at the mall and she comes home at 8. I had about 3 hours for myself, so I decided to check out the window once again. I opened the blinds and let the sun shine in. The dark figure was obviously gone. Nothing seemed off or out of the ordinary. The window wasn't broken or anything, and I had no explanation as to how it had opened, if none of us had done it. We don't have strong winds here. Not ones that will blow open a shut window. Definitely not. I was confused. Things like this just don't happen. I don't believe in ghosts or anything like that. I decided to throw some bad thoughts out of my head and go out to smoke a cigarette and wait for my wife to come home, since she only works a few hundred meters away from here. She's on foot. Once she gets home, we order pizza for dinner, watch a movie, and do adult stuff. Talk, laugh, drink a bit. We go to sleep at around 1 a.m. I check the window before we do so. It's shut. No figure standing outside this night. I go to the back door and check the lock on the door as well. Locked. No sound outside. I go back to the bathroom, turn out the lights and jump to bed. I feel cold. I wake up. My watch is unplugged. I turn around and see the bed beside me empty. Cold sweat is rushing down my spine. My wife is gone. I bolt upright in bed. I feel the cold again. I grab my gun and walk out of the bedroom. What I see is terrifying. Every window is open, wide open. The cool air is blowing in. I proceed to close every window and, as I do, I call for my wife. No answer. I check the bathroom and every other room. Nothing. Finally, the kitchen. The window is the last one open there. I walk inside the dark kitchen, pointing my gun at the window. No, it's an intruder, I proceed to tell myself. But something inside me knows this is something worse. I don't dare to turn on the lights in the kitchen. I'm scared that I might see something I will... well, I don't know. I slowly approach the window. Then I see it. It's my wife. Well, her face to be exact. A minute later, it's gone. I want to call out to her, but I can't. My mouth is dry. My hand with the gun is now shaking. I'm at the window. I see it. The figure. It's sitting on the tree. It's not a man. It has 6 eyes and way too many arms. It sits there, smiling with its huge mouth. I don't know what to do. One's mind can only process what it understands. Then, suddenly, the creature lunges at me, trying to grab me with its long and nail-covered fingers. I fire a shot at it. The bullet just bounces off, so I try pushing it away from myself. It tries to eat my face, but I use all of my strength I have in me to push its jaws away from me. Then, an idea sparks into my mind. I'm gonna burn myself and this fucker with it. Our flat has a gasoline tank. It's not much, but it might be enough to light this apartment on fire. I know this sounds crazy, but I think it's the only chance I've got. With all of my strength, I push this thing off me and throw a kitchen knife at it. It screams a terrifying scream and growls in pain. This gives me the split second to close the window and rush out of the room and shut the door behind me. I feel pain in my wrist. Blood is soaking in my shorts as well. I take the gasoline container from the washing room and open it, splashing the gasoline all over the floor. And what surprises me is that I hear no sound from the kitchen whatsoever. I empty half of it and proceed to walk back to the kitchen. Wait for a moment, then brace myself for the worst. Walk inside. My wife is standing in front of me. She wraps her arms around me and starts whispering to me. I almost believe that it's her. But there is one thing. Since when does my wife have red eyes? I scream, punch her away. Immediately her skin starts peeling off, revealing the creature. I smile and splash the remaining gasoline around me and on the creature as well. It stares at me for a moment. I look into its eyes of hell. Then I pull out my lighter, and just as the thing jumps on top of me, I drop it on the ground. I feel sharp pain, and then I'm falling into the black abyss. Local newspaper reports. 4 killed in apartment 5. The fire supposedly started from the 4th floor and lit up the whole building. It took 2 days for the firemen to completely extinguish the fire, which could have been caused by a gasoline explosion. The bodies of 4 persons were found, all but one man. The most destroyed body had bizarre marks on it. Parts of the man's body were bitten out, and his eyes were gone.
The Staring Doll. Narrated by Danie Dreadful.
It was just after school and Jenny's parents hadn't arrived home from work yet. It was just the 2 of them and they were engrossed in a board game. Heather was having a good time, except they were playing in a room adjacent to Jenny's parents' bedroom, and every now and then Heather would glance up through the open door of that bedroom to see a little girl doll sitting up on the bed. Its eyes appeared to be staring at them. She tried to ignore it, but over time it started to get to her. "I'm sorry," she said. "I can't concentrate. That doll on the bed over there is giving me the creeps." "Oh, no problem," Jenny replied. She went to the room and closed the door to calm Heather down. Then the 2 friends resumed their game. It hadn't been long, however, before Heather glanced up again. The door was open once again, and again the doll appeared to be staring at them. Jenny couldn't understand it. She could swear that there was nobody else home, and there was no way that the door could have opened without the knob being turned. Shrugging, she went up to the bedroom and closed the door, this time making sure that it clicked shut. But again and again, they would check the door and find it wide open. Heather was starting to get very scared. Finally, Jenny had enough of this. She went into the bedroom, grabbed the doll, and threw it in the closet, slamming it shut. She then slammed the bedroom door shut behind her, and they resumed their game. For a while, things appeared to be going well, but then Heather glanced up one last time, and all of a sudden, she stood up and said, "Goodbye," and ran home as fast as she could. This time, when Jenny looked up, she saw the bedroom door only slightly ajar, with a chair propped up behind it, and sitting on the chair, peeking through the opening at them, was the doll.
The Scarecrow. Narrated by Creepypasta.
As Jake trudged through the fields, he recalled the argument that he'd had with his dad. "But they've only been up a month. They don't need changing," he had yelled. "Yes, they do, Jake. Every one of them. And I want that first Scarecrow replaced by sundown." He shifted the heavy bag slung over his shoulder and cursed at himself for not thinking of something more clever to say. He clutched the stepladder in his other arm like a lance and fantasized about different endings to the fight. "I do all the work," he thought to himself, "and just once, I'd like some say as to how things get done around here." Striding up to the stoic figure, he put down the bag and planted the ladder. "Damn things last almost 2 months with proper care," he fumed as he stepped up. He pulled off the garish hood and was met with a chorus of buzzing horseflies. Jake had just enough time to see the boy's glazed eyes and the dried blood in his nostrils before the head slumped forward. "Huh," he mused. Dad was right.
Go Away, Old Lady. Translated by J Nightmares and narrated by Phoenix Fire.
Go away, old lady. This is a very popular urban legend from my town. Some say that even hearing this can cause something to happen, so I want to keep an eye out and stay safe. I first heard this story when I was in the first year of junior high school, or primary school, depending where you are from. My brother told me this, and he's just over 2 years older than me. I know this story as Go Away, Old Lady, but it might be called other names in other places. It goes like this. You hear a knocking against your window or your doors in the middle of the night, and you think to yourself, who's out there? Just like normal, right? You either carelessly open it without thought, or you don't open it at first and eye the door or window suspiciously, because who would turn up at your home in the middle of the night? But then you hear the voice of a family member or a friend and you think it's all fine, unaware that whatever that thing is behind the door has the ability to mimic voices. Once you open the door or window and allow it access, it comes for you and takes your soul, leaving you an empty vessel, a hollow shell, unable to comprehend emotion or cognitive thought. So, if you hear knocking later, try to ignore it. When I first heard this story, I was really creeped out by it. I didn't want to sleep alone, so I slept in my brother's room on the fold-out bed. Quite a number of nights later, I was awoken in the middle of the night. I can't be certain of the exact time, but I think it was around 1 a.m. I heard a series of loud bangs against our front door. It sounded so loud I was thinking, what the hell? But then I suddenly remembered the story my brother told me. Oh God, it's here, I thought to myself. The reason why I knew it to be our front door is because we live on the 3rd floor. I thought that there might just be a drunk out there or something, but I heard no voices. There were no footsteps at all. Also, we have a doorbell. Why didn't whoever was out there use it? My mind went back to my brother's story, and I started to shiver in my bed. I felt tears begin to gather in the corner of my eyes. I cowered beneath the blanket for what felt like hours. I didn't dare pop my head out of the covers to check my alarm clock. I eventually went back to sleep. I woke up with a question in my mind I haven't been able to answer. Why didn't anyone else wake up when the door was being hammered on? No one even mentioned it the following day. I didn't have the courage to ask them. I don't know, maybe there is some truth to some urban legends. Apparently, if you chant, "Go away, old lady," 3 times, it makes whatever is out there go away. I don't know why it's regarded as an old woman. Maybe hag is better, I guess. It might be named Old Woman by whoever has seen it, or those who know more of the origins of this urban legend. Anyway, if you hear knocking later, do not answer it.
Bloody Mary, narrated by Lone Wolf.
She lived deep in the forest in a tiny cottage and sold herbal remedies for a living. Folks living in the town nearby called her Bloody Mary and said she was a witch. No one dared cross the old crone for fear that their cows would go dry, their food stores rot away before winter, their children take sick of fever, or any number of terrible things that an angry witch could do to her neighbors and their children. Then, the little girls in the village began to disappear, one by one. No one could find out where they had gone. Grief-stricken families searched the woods, the local buildings, and all the houses and barns, but there was no sign of the missing girls. A few brave souls even went to Bloody Mary's home in the woods to see if the witch had taken the girls, but she denied any knowledge of the disappearances. Still, it was noted that her haggard appearance had changed. She looked younger, more attractive. The neighbors were suspicious, but they could find no proof that the witch had taken their young ones. Then came the night when the daughter of the miller rose from her bed and walked outside, following an enchanted sound that no one else could hear. The miller's wife had a toothache and was sitting up in the kitchen treating the tooth with an herbal remedy when her daughter left the house. She screamed for her husband and followed the girl out the door. The miller came running in his nightshirt, and together they tried to restrain the girl, but she kept breaking away from them and heading out of town. The desperate cries of the miller and his wife woke the neighbors, and they came to assist the frantic couple. Suddenly, a sharp-eyed farmer gave a shout and pointed towards a strange light at the edge of the woods. A few townsmen followed him out into the field, and saw Bloody Mary standing beside a large oak tree holding a magic wand that was pointed towards the miller's house. She was glowing with an unearthly light as she set her evil spell upon the miller's daughter. The townsmen grabbed their guns and their pitchforks and ran toward the witch. When she heard the commotion, Bloody Mary broke off her spell and fled back into the woods. The far-sighted farmer had loaded his gun with silver bullets in case the witch ever came after his daughter. He took aim and shot her. The bullet hit Bloody Mary in the hip, and she fell to the ground. The angry townsmen leapt upon her and carried her back into the field, where they built a huge bonfire and burned her at the stake. As she burned, Bloody Mary screamed a curse at the villagers. If anyone mentioned her name aloud before a mirror, she would send her spirit to revenge herself upon them for her terrible death. When she was dead, the villagers went to the house in the woods and found the unmarked graves of the little girls the evil witch had murdered. She had used their blood to make her young again, From that day to this, anyone foolish enough to chant Bloody Mary's name 3 times before a darkened mirror will summon the vengeful spirit of the witch. It is said that she will tear their bodies to pieces and rip their souls from their mutilated bodies. The souls of these unfortunate ones will burn in torment as Bloody Mary once was burned, and they will forever be trapped in the mirror.
I Sat on the Bus. Narrated by Don't Fall Asleep.
I sat on the bus on my way to school, listening to music and paying little to no attention to the other students. At one of the stops, my mind snapped back to reality. I looked towards the small house. Tommy's house, I thought. A hand slipped through the drapes of the window and waved the bus driver to move on. He's sick, I thought, paying no large amount of attention to the situation. The day flew by. I watched the local news channel after school, and what I heard paralyzed me. Tommy's entire family was murdered that day by an unknown suspect. After hearing this news, I moved back up to my room and quietly fell asleep. The next day, I sat on the bus. We drove past Tommy's house, and the bus driver, unaware of Tommy's family's fate, stopped at his home. As I was about to get up and explain to her what had happened, something caught my eye. A pale hand slipped through the drapes of the window and waved the bus driver to move on. I sat on the bus, terrified.
Salt Creek Road. Narrated by Dr. Creepen.
Salt Creek Road is a 7-mile road in Brown County, Indiana. It and Sweetwater Trail connects Nashville, Indiana, to Sweetwater Lake. The road is a very narrow 2-lane road with sharp turns and graded bridges. I was 22 at the time. I'd gone with my buddies to watch the Monday night football game at the golf course bar, just outside Nashville. Halfway during the 3rd quarter, I told my friends I was done for the evening and was heading home. I wasn't terribly drunk, just a little tipsy at worst. I lived on Sweetwater Lake in my family's lake house that they'd owned for nearly 60 years. I'd only been on Salt Creek Road for a few minutes when I heard the approaching noise of a large truck. That's odd, I thought to myself. There are many other ways a semi could get to the lake that were easier to travel. Deciding to let it pass me, I slowed down and pulled over. I saw the 2 yellow headlights coming closer, and then nothing. The lights passed my car, but there was no source for the lights themselves. I could still hear the noises of the diesel engine, growing fainter and fainter. Passing it off as some semi-drunken hallucination, I continued driving. And that's when I started to smell diesel fuel and blood. Off in the distance, I could see an orangish yellow light. I feared that the vehicle was on fire and reached for my cell phone, but I stopped in shock as I saw the entire scene in front of me. A large semi-truck had careened off the road into Salt Creek and the rocky cliffs on both sides. The engine had exploded, setting the contents of the truck on fire. The driver had been catapulted through the windshield and into a nearby tree, decapitating him. The body was still squirming, blood pouring out from his neck and everywhere else in his body. I pulled over and stepped outside, vomiting all over the pavement. I'd only dialed 9 when the body stopped squirming. He stood up and seemed to be facing me. The stench of his putrid breath from this far away told me that I wasn't dreaming. I thought I was safe when I sped off in my car, but I looked in the mirror and realized it was still following me at superhuman speeds. And it wasn't even walking. Rather, it seemed to be floating a foot or so above the ground. I floored it, only wanting to get away from this demon. On the side of the road were two on-duty officers, hidden just beyond a curve in the road. They camped out there frequently, hoping to catch drunk drivers before they crashed and killed themselves. I must have been doing 60 when I passed them, because they wasted no time starting after me. I didn't bother stopping. I would rather have been in jail than be caught by whatever that thing was. I just reached 80 when I missed a turn in the road, ploughing into the empty cornfield. I wasn't hurt, but the cops soon caught up to me. "Are you crazy, son? What were you thinking going so fast on a country road?" They questioned me as they put handcuffs on me. "Officer, there's something after me. I passed a truck accident about 10 minutes ago. It was terrible. The driver had been decapitated, but it started running after me. It went faster than any human I've ever seen. I could barely outrun it at 30. "Lying to the authorities won't get you anywhere. Now, let's..." But the officer stopped short as the piercing shriek of something inhuman rang out. We all turned around, and I got a closer look at the creature that had been following me. It was around 6 feet tall, with filthy clothes and a dagger in one hand. They raised their guns in return, but in a flash it advanced on us, decapitating one of the officers. The remaining officer unloaded his entire cartridge, but the bullets seemingly bounced off the creature, melting into molten shreds on the pavement. Having run out of ammo, we took no chances. The creature seemed faster this time, and it was now screaming every few seconds. It was the sound of nails on a chalkboard as the creature's claws slashed the sides of the car. Part of the rear bumper fell off with a clunk and tripped the creature, which crashed into the pavement. For a moment, we thought we'd lost it. I couldn't see it behind us, but the officer gasped and swerved to avoid something. I turned around to see the creature in front of the car, his dagger outstretched, and an evil grin stretched across the decapitated officer's head. We didn't slow down in time, and the sound of the collision was gruesome. The head fell and stuck to the windshield, now laughing malevolently in the voice of the officer. The innards of the head were now starting to ooze onto the windshield. He let me go without explanation. I never plan on driving that road again. Every few weeks, there's a new report of a decapitated person or farm animal around here. At night, I can hear the malevolent laughing of that creature, and the scratching at the windows. My dog will bark and growl. It's been like this for 5 months now, and I'm the only one that still knows what's going on. The remaining officer mysteriously disappeared a month after the incident. I've tried sending emails, but they are immediately deleted from my send box, or my computer shuts down while I'm typing, and I keep receiving mail that says the same thing every time. I'm closer than you think.
Incorporeal. Narrated by Horror Over Coffee.
Recognition without context. A wall, a painting, a fireplace, a lamp. I see these things and I know them, but I don't know why. Who once told me what a fireplace is and what it is for? How do I recognize it without memory, and yet have visions in my mind's eye of it crackling with light and warmth. I fear the lighting of it, for I have been nothing but a coldness. I feel as though I am made of drifts of snow, dyed black by shadow, and can feel my mind only in the darkness. That is why I sweep through the hallways at night and break the bulbs in the lowlights. I cannot think while they are lit, and I must think. I must find an answer. Something stirs. It is a doll with black hair, dressed in pajamas. I have seen the dolls before. This one is the smallest. It goes into the kitchen, and I follow, keeping a reasonable distance. I am intrigued by the dolls and their clockwork movements, in and out of their beds, to and from the doors, sitting at the dining room table with their plates and cups. Their forms give them advantages I do not have, and I watch them often. The doll goes into the kitchen while I follow behind. Its tiny body is radiant with sleep, and its shoeless feet make almost no noise as it goes to the refrigerator door and opens it. Light spills out onto the doll and onto me. I cannot have that. My mind has been so focused tonight. Anger and desperation surge within me, bracing me forward as I wrench the door handle from the little doll and slam the refrigerator shut. This is when the doll falls into me, the force of the blow knocking it backwards into the center of me. I feel its pulse, the rhythm of its heart, and the soothing draw of its breath. My memory mingles with something inside of the little head, and I can see new green grass, streams full of fish, muddy rubber boots, a sky, and a world beyond the upstairs, downstairs, and basement of this place. How desperate I am to see more, to take all of the memories inside of this doll and make them my own, expanding my knowledge and answering the secrets of this existence. But it is only seconds between the push that closes the door and the doll landing harshly on the stone floor. It begins to wail, to sob, to meow like an injured kitten. I can hear the rest of them, marching down the stairs and leaving a trail of light behind them. There is little time to flee, so I open all of the cupboards at once, searching desperately for a corner of darkness to hide in before the electric light of the kitchen is switched on.
Residual. Narrated by Lady Spookaria.
Concealed by rock and magma, there is a place which harbors an unimaginable secret. It is completely invisible from the empty sky, the cluttered earth, and the chaotic seas. No matter how hard you look, how far you search, or how deep you venture, you will never find it. At a time, there may have been a passage leading there. An entrance through one could enter, but I guarantee you it does not exist anymore. There is no use exploring in an attempt to discover this place, and neither is there any use in waiting for it to be revealed naturally over time, for the earth itself shall crumble before the rocking casing it corrodes. There have only ever been a select few people there, in all eternity, and after they left, they ensured that no other would ever be able to return, or rather, they ensured that nothing would escape. For you see, this place was not chosen to be a fortress, though it could be defined as such. It was selected, and then designed to be a prison, to contain. The secrecy and impenetrability of this place was a measure not meant to withhold secrets, though it does. It was a seal meant to protect the entirety of life, incarcerated in this archaic place of ancient stone and forgotten secrets, is something far worse than anything mankind has dared to imagine. It is more dangerous than a supernova, more frightening than the most primordial legends, and more powerful than any god. Its motives are beyond the understanding of human minds, and its appearance is enough to make any blind man go mad. To try and imagine it, it'll be like attempting to imagine a color you have never seen. It is the inspiration behind demons and devils, the puppeteer of war, and the seed of corruption, the absolute void of madness. For even from within its prison, it still reaches out, calling to us, bringing us ever closer to its malevolent grasp. How it came to be is entirely unknown, a secret that it alone holds from mortal knowledge. It can be said, however, that it is not of our creation, and we are not of its. It is neither alive or dead, only everlasting and infinite in its existence, and boundless in its putrid influence. Whether or not it will be our doom cannot be seen, though I suspect it will be. For no matter how far we venture from it, the footprint of its power will forever be embedded into our subconscious. And eons after humanity has become extinct, and the Earth has become nothing more than asteroids, blindly wandering the universe, there it shall remain, in its prison, residual for all eternity. It will forever be the sole survivor, yet never a victim, only a lone destroyer, with a purpose that shall be perpetually unknown and indiscernible to mere mortal minds.
Sunrise. Narrated by Phoenix Fire.
Everyone loves a good scare. That's why you're listening to these stories, correct? You thought it would be fun just before you go to bed to scare yourself just a tad bit. Harmless fun of reading that while getting your heart to race. Never put you in real danger. So, what's tonight's topic for your nightmares? Jeff the Killer with his go to sleep? Slender Man slightly stalking you wherever you venture? A Candle Cove experience that hits home so nostalgically for you that it seems true. Or maybe, just maybe, something new and unique that haunts you in an unexpected way. Whatever the case, you keep reading. Perhaps it's all a big joke to you. Something you laugh off rather than take seriously. No one's holding a gun to your head after all, and you're doing exactly what you're doing of your own free will. You need to stop now. Stop reading this for your own sake. S-T-O-P. You're still here. It's your own fault, you know. You've programmed it so deep in the back of your brain that just being told to stop is completely ignored. Optimistic about what's next, aren't you? That'll be your undoing. Just taking things as they happen without a care in the world. Thinking your room is safe just because you have the only key to it. You have no idea how unsafe you really are. I know so much about you, yet you know nothing about me. The last time you ever acknowledged my mere presence was when you were still pissing the bed. You called me the monster in your room or the boogeyman. You've just been blocking me out since then, really. You told yourself it was nothing but loose clothing or a misshapen shadow cast of one of your toys. I've never stopped watching, however. My dark red eyes stare at you even now, just out of your peripheral vision. Chills down your spine, I see. Are you remembering the noose around my neck? The tattered dark rags I wear? The burlap sack over my face, which I have for your sake, so you'll never know my true unfathomable horror that it hides. My decaying long-nailed hands? There's that look. The same look you had all those years ago. One last request I see painted on your face. Who am I? Call me the Sunrise Killer. All coming back to you now, isn't it? Those unexplained murders you glanced by in the paper over the years. I'm not bragging, but I won't deny them. Nothing but practice. For you. Every single one. Of you. The brave ones who've prepared so long for something to happen at the apex of night. It is darkest before dawn. So for you, just you, the most helpful of them all, look on the bright side. You still have an hour before sunrise.
Migraines. Narrated by the Sandman.
It's a stabbing pain, really. It comes suddenly, without warning. I don't know how many doctors I've seen. Migraine medications didn't help. Tension headaches, please. I'm fine most of the time, but then it hits. It hits right behind my eye. It attacks me, like some tiny demon with an ice pick stabbing my eye. It comes without warning, without pity, and without remorse. It attacked me in the car once. I crashed into a parked car. I got sued. Really, it's not fair. It wasn't my fault. When it attacks, my eyes water and my nose runs. I can't see. All I feel is the stabbing, angry pain trying to pop out my eye. It happened once at my job. I screamed. Everyone thought I was crazy. All it takes is one time doing something out of the norm, and I'm labeled as crazy. No one understands. I can't sleep. I can't work. I can't drive. I just wait for the demon to attack. I tried medication. I did everything they told me. Pain medication, seizure medications, yoga, everything. I tried drugs, all of them. I tried marijuana, Percocet, even heroin. My demon just laughs at my drugs. I got caught. With Percocet. My parents think I'm a criminal. It's not my fault. It's the demon. It's always the demon. He screeches. He's coming. I don't know when. I don't know where. But he always comes back. The anticipation is almost worse than the stab. All day I just wait. I just wait for the demon. Sometimes he comes. Sometimes he doesn't. I think he just laughs at me. It's not fair. I didn't ask for this. One doctor said it was an ice pick headache. Well, that's what it feels like. A demon with an ice pick. A demon stabbing me. I hate him. I thought I could stab him back. I didn't want to go without a fight, you know? So, I got my own ice pick. And I sliced my eye out. Can you imagine plucking out your own eye? But it didn't help. It didn't help. I don't know what else to do. Suicide, maybe? But maybe I can get rid of the demon by finding him a new home. Maybe he'd like someone else. Maybe he'll move on and I'll be free. I'll get my life back. I know it's not fair. But it's not fair that I have to go through this. It's not fair. Maybe if someone else feels an ice pick through their eye, they'll understand. Maybe the demon will go to them. Anyway, that's why you're here. I'm sorry. Really, I am. But I don't know what else to do. Please, stop struggling. It's just going to make things worse.
Movie Night. Narrated by Creepypasta.
You were excited for this day. You should be, after all. You've been working hard. You deserve to have some fun. For tonight, you planned a movie night with a couple of old friends. Horror movies, as was customary since your younger days. You all watched with wide eyes and shaking hands, while cracking jokes and denying feeling any fear. Nobody wants to be the wimp, right? It was about 4 a.m. when the last movie stopped, and everybody headed home, leaving you all alone. You jumped at the creaks and the moans, which seemed much more noticeable after the night of ghosts and gore. Eventually, you decided to go to bed, but not before one last trip to the bathroom. The walk seemed long and daunting, as it always does after a night of scares. You kept on looking back, checking for something lurking in the shadows. You knew that you were acting ridiculous, but the feelings seemed to linger. Not even sleep would calm your mind. You tossed, you turned, and you mumbled all throughout the night. No sense in denying it. I know you did. I saw you.
The Onyx. Narrated by Dr. Creepen.
It calls itself the Onyx, the black, the darkness. It is an ominous and otherworldly thing, slowly and painfully driving me to my grave since I was a child. I can remember our first encounter with clarity. The bulb in my nightlight had burned out, and Daddy and Mommy were already in bed. No one was left to protect me. The creature walks hand in hand with the darkness of night, undetected, unexpected, yet perpetually feared. You see, this entity preys viciously on the weak of mind, the innocent, the unknowing. It is undetectable in the first moments of its arrival. No warning is given, no chance to prepare. It is simply there with you, whether you want it to be or not. It's followed me for years now. The 20th anniversary of when it first showed itself to me is approaching, and it knows I am near the point of surrender. The Onyx has mastered the art of enforcing psychological exhaustion upon its victims. Things go quite smoothly for it when it has known you since your childhood, as it has me. Most people would recognize it upon seeing it. It has no real shape or mass. It's just that dim, wispy cloud of hellish darkness crawling up your bedroom wall and looming in silent weight of your surrender to weariness from the day. I am very much aware of the fact that it watches me, invisible during the day, blatantly surrounding in the night. The moment light is extinguished with the simple flick of a switch, it exists, dominant and evil. The Onyx has been gracious enough to inform me that tonight will be my final encounter with it. Not that it's going anywhere. Only me. I have no say in the matter, no control. I am under its merciless command. I am given no choice but to accept my fate and my final task. To lie in agonizing wait of the final visit of the Onyx. I'm starting to shiver. Oh God, I can already feel it. The sensation of several weights laid across my body is abrupt and powerful, pressing me into the mattress. I can't move. My muscles have stiffened to stone. I dare only to move my eyes, and I watch as the Onyx slithers under my closed door and into the room. It watches me from the foot of my bed. I am helpless, ensnared vulnerably with its insidious contemplation. It makes its way to the side of the bed, then arches its grotesque form over me, slithering what feels like a skeletal hand over my body. It towers over me, and its darkness overtakes me in its entirety one last time. Its delicate mantle of blackness glides across my face. I'm reminded briefly of a gothic and tattered bride's veil. The Onyx hovers to the darkest corner of the room, taking its usual route up the wall and onto the ceiling above my bed. It stares triumphantly down on me, and stays that way for some time, seeming to relish the moment. Finally, it begins its descent. I close my eyes. Several sharp objects, almost like claws, dig into the sides of my face, leaving behind what I'm sure are angry, bleeding gashes. I can't help it. I scream. The skeletal hands are closing over my skull. Then, suddenly, what feels like a third hand, decked with needle-like fingers, forces itself down my throat. I gag and shriek hoarsely as the spindly fingers dig through my insides, burning and tearing with every careless movement. Distinctively, I feel the hand move with purpose as it closes over my panicking heart. It has me. The fingers tighten. My vision turns blank. A strangled cry beyond my own recognition escapes my obstructed throat. The claws gripping my head begin to tighten as well. Pressure builds inside my brain as the skull begins to crack. I experience every little split, every microscopic break. Warm liquids trickle down the sides of my face, into my eyes, into my open mouth. My body is made of agony. And then there is nothing. They find me like that a few days later, eyes glazed and mad with anguish, skull in shards with unknown fluids leaking out, blood seeping from the ragged lips and gathering in a large pool on my bruised, unmoving chest. Mysterious, ink-black handprints stain my skin in various places. My heart, they discover, is oddly missing. Gone. Nowhere to be found. What could have done this? The officers and investigators ask one another. The remnants of my eyes roll around rapidly in their sockets, looking frantically in all directions. It's right in front of you, I tell them. But their ears are deaf to my warnings. Their eyes are blind to the things of this netherworld of darkness and ceaseless torment. I watch the creature follow them out as they leave the gruesome scene of my demise. The creature. My second shadow. My lifelong stalker. My executioner. The Onyx. It's all around you. It will never leave you. Take my word. Take the word of its claimed victim. You will see. Just wait until dark.
An Old Friend. Narrated by 242.
It had been years since Jessica returned to her hometown. 20 years have passed by so quickly when living in a big city. Nothing much has changed since you left, as if the town was suspended in time. The storefronts remain, faces change, men and women grow old. At the heart of it all, it's still the same old town. Her flight back to the city got delayed, forcing her to stay in town. It was already getting dark. She needed a place to stay until she could take her flight in the morning. Her parents had left the town years earlier, leaving their old home in the care of Jessica's younger cousin, Jason. Her old room was the only thing she looked forward to when she headed home. It was her peace of mind and a reminder of simpler times. The walls were covered in posters from her youth, perfectly preserved for her to return to once more. One poster stood out. It was the oldest poster she received from Shirley, her best friend and confidant. They had been through thick and thin together. Jessica still mourns the day she left town and bid goodbye to her dear friend. Feeling nostalgic, Jessica decided to take a walk and relive past days. She walked past the street where Shirley lived. She wanted to pay her long-lost friend a visit, for old time's sakes. However, Jessica couldn't bring herself to do so. She's afraid that Shirley might still be upset. She jumps into her car and heads for the one place in town she goes to clear her head. Near the edge of town was a bridge, the site of many of Jessica and Shirley's shenanigans, where they hang out where either of them had a fight with their parents. It was their place of solitude. Jessica stood over the railing, overlooking the rushing water of the river underneath. The night was still and chilly. Her peace was broken when a sudden breeze of cold brushed up her neck, like someone was behind her. Jessica looked around and saw nothing, just the light of the bridge illuminating the surroundings, and at the edge stood a silhouette. It was vaguely human, standing in the middle of the road meters away, where the light from the bridge abruptly stopped. The shape was staring right at her. Its piercing gaze froze Jessica right where she stood. The shape was approaching closer and closer to Jessica, ready to step in the light and reveal itself. "Jessica?" A familiar voice calls out to her. She turns around and sees Shirley eagerly approaching. "How long have you been in town? Why didn't you say anything?" Jessica snapped back to reality, grabbed Shirley's hand, and began to run towards her car. Shirley was visibly confused, repeatedly asking the distraught Jessica what was wrong. Jessica didn't seem to hear a word she was saying. She just kept running. The two of them drove off in a heartbeat, Jessica peering at the rearview mirror, but the shape was long gone. It had vanished the moment Shirley appeared. They stopped by the nearby bar to compose themselves. "So, you want to tell me what you're doing at the bridge all by yourself?" asked Shirley. Jessica was still trying to make sense of what happened on the bridge, desperately rationalizing what she witnessed. I just needed to clear my head," said Jessica, her voice trembling still. Shirley grabbed her hand and looked her in the eyes with a still and calming gaze. "Hey, it's going to be all right." The two friends entered the bar to soothe their nerves. The two drank and laughed harder than they ever had in the past 20 years. The two bonded for hours, regaling past stories and reliving the spirit of their youth. "Why didn't you just knock on my door?" asked Shirley. "I'm not just going to show up unannounced and ask you if you want to hang out after 20 years, said Jessica. "Why the hell not? You can always come to me, you know that," replied Shirley. Jessica was dumbstruck by her friend's straightforward response. After all these years, Shirley still has her back. A few hours passed and the two decided to part. Jessica insisted on driving Shirley home, just as she was about to turn and drive up Shirley Street. "Hey, where are you going? I don't live there anymore." Jessica was confused, yet she obliged her friend, driving up further down the road. up to the other side of town. The two arrived at an intersection. Shirley departs and bids her dear friend goodbye.
It's been great seeing you again, Jess. Take care of yourself, you hear me?
Jessica reluctantly bids Shirley farewell. She asks Shirley if she wanted her to accompany her home, to which Shirley had politely declined. Jessica hesitates to leave behind her friend. The area was devoid of light for miles. She worried about what lurks in the dark. So she decided to follow Shirley home, only to realize she was nowhere to be found. Nothing but trees and the darkness looming around her. She calls Shirley's name repeatedly. Jessica feels the cold breeze upon her again. Someone else is with her. She immediately gets in her car and leaves. She stares at the rear view, hoping to get a glimpse of Shirley. She doesn't recall much from the night before. Must have had one too many drinks. Jessica examines her room once more before wishing it goodbye, heading to the airport. Just as she's about to get into her car, she stumbles into another friend from high school, Heather. She catches up with her old friend. Jessica regrets not being able to hang out with both Shirley and Heather. Heather was shocked and stunned when she mentioned Shirley. Oh my god, Jessica, Shirley died 14 years ago. Jessica couldn't believe her ears. How could she? She asked Heather to refrain from making such a morbid joke. She insisted profusely that she met and talked with Shirley.
I'm sorry, Jess, but she's gone. The police said she was last seen in the intersection way past town. 2 weeks later, she came up, strangled, left in the ditch meters from that intersection. We don't know who did it, but they say they saw someone in black around the area. Ever since then, we've been avoiding going out in the dark.
The Pendant. Narrated by Don't Fall Asleep.
You jolt awake to some noise off in the distance. You look at your red-lettered clock. 3:21. You hear the noise again. Someone's knocking on your door. There's no reason to be afraid, you remind yourself. But you can't imagine any reason why someone would be up this late. You quietly walk over to the door. Hello? Knock, knock, knock. Hello? Are you home? Knock, knock, knock. Please be home. Hello? She mumbles something. I need your help! Knock, knock, knock. You recognize her voice and look out the window. It's your neighbor. She's wearing her pajamas and some shining pendant around her neck. She sees you. Oh! She looks afraid at first, and then puts on a worried smile. Can I use your phone? I need to come in. Why can't you use your phone? Mine is broke. She pauses. I think someone's inside my house. You pause for a moment to look at the fear on her face. When you open the door, it slowly dawns on you. Whoever it is isn't inside her house. He's behind her. And what's shining by her neck isn't a pendant.
The Stairs. Narrated by Ponch Monster Studios.
In 1984, there lived an old widowed lady by herself in a 2-story house who was completely immobile and bound to her wheelchair. Ever since the mysterious death of her husband, she required the aid of a carer who would visit her daily to help her with her everyday tasks. What made it even more difficult was the fact that the 2 floors of the house were only connected by an old staircase inside. When the old lady needed to move between the 2, the carer would have to carry her frail body, like an infant, up and down the stairs. One day, the police received a phone call from the widow. There had been a murder. Since police units were scarce at the time, and the murderer had already fled the scene, only one detective was sent out to conduct the initial crime scene report. He arrived to see the carer's body splayed out on the floor, with vocal cords ripped out in a pool of blood on the first level of the house, with the old lady atop the staircase in her wheelchair watching him, still and silently, seemingly in shock. He could immediately rule her out as a suspect due to her inability to move up and down the stairs, and because she was trapped up there the time the murder took place. It was similar to the death of her husband many years ago, who had suffocated in his sleep on the couch downstairs. The detective put on his gloves, took photos, swabbed for evidence, and covered the body until the coroner arrived later. All routine business. He scoped the house downstairs for any clues, then asked the old lady if he could look upstairs. She insisted that she was upstairs the whole time, and that no one apart from her had been up there that day. But regardless of this, the detective ascended the staircase, to which she hesitantly moved aside. Beyond the staircase, there was a narrow corridor with 3 closed doors along it. He checked behind each of the doors. The empty bedroom, nothing. The bathroom, nothing. He became anxious as he slowly made his way to the final bedroom, where the old lady slept. He opened it, and everything looked normal. A bed, a wardrobe, and a bedside table with a lamp. He checked every wall of the room in horror, as it was not what he discovered, but it was what he didn't discover that made him stop dead in his tracks and slowly reach for his gun in its holster. It was a detail so minor that they had completely overlooked it on the last investigation of the husband's death. There was no phone upstairs. He suddenly heard a noise as he withdrew his gun and rushed out of the room, only to find an empty wheelchair atop the stairs.
The Marlborough Stretch. Narrated by Creepypasta.
In central Queensland, there is a lonely, isolated stretch of highway surrounded by vast amounts of nothing. It is known as the Marlborough Stretch. Almost 400 kilometres of road, split up only twice by towns so small that if you blink, you're gonna miss them. Travelling on this stretch, there are signs advising to stop frequently to rest and signs indicating a driver fatigue zone. These signs are there due to the high amount of fatal car accidents along this stretch. Driving during the day, it provides a boring and repetitive sight. However, after the sun goes down, the Marlborough Stretch becomes something more than just a wall of trees surrounding a lonely highway. For the people living either side of the Marlborough Stretch, there are rumours and legends regarding this mysterious highway and what goes on after the sun goes down and the stars come out. The sun appears as if it is setting earlier in the day to people driving through, and once it's dark, the stars are your only light source. There are no lights on the horizon, and if you look up, you will see no planes. The sky is so clear and untouched, you feel like you can see to the other side of the universe. If you speak to any of the locals in the towns surrounding the stretch, they will advise you, if driving at night, to never stop. They will tell you to just keep going, don't slow down, and don't look back. There are stories of people hitting animals, stopping to check the damage, only to find the road empty and no animal to be seen. The soft purr of their idling car, the slow crunch of dried leaves in the nearby bushes, and soft, reflecting eyes leering back from the dark void of the bush are all you will find outside. Many, many people have disappeared along the Marlborough stretch. Many people have driven in, never to exit the other side. And those who have made it out swear to never return. Headlights appear to come towards you, only to disappear once past. And every once in a while, there will be reports of glowing balls of light bouncing above the tree lines, following cars, and some even approaching people who have stopped on the side of the road. The local people describe the mysterious lights as min-min lights. If you find yourself driving the Great Marlborough stretch, and you notice the sun hastily falling towards the horizon, it is advised to not slow down, to never stop, and to be wary of the creatures crossing the roads. It could be something more than a simple bush animal. Greetings, folks. Creepy Oz here. I'd like to thank everyone who's tuned in to listen tonight. Thanks for choosing to spend your Halloween night here with us. I'd also like to thank all of my fellow narrators who have joined me for this year's Mega. You guys are amazing. I'm truly thankful to call each and every one of you not only my colleagues but my friends. Everyone who joined me tonight, you'll find their channels linked in the description. So please, do go and show their channels the love they deserve. I really hope everyone's enjoyed themselves tonight. We've certainly had a ton of fun reading to you all. If you did enjoy the show, I do kindly ask that you consider flicking that thumbs up button. Did you have a favorite story from tonight? A standout narrator maybe? Perhaps you discovered a new voice here that you really liked. Make sure to let us know down in the comments. Alrighty guys, thanks again for hanging out with us. That officially wraps up Halloween 2023 here at Creepy Oz. Whatever you're up to the rest of today or tonight, whatever it happens to be where you are, enjoy the remainder of your Halloween, guys. I hope it's a fun and a safe one. Good night, guys. Happy Halloween from all of us to you.